up, you guys? Welcome back to your favorite Aunties podcast. I am Shamarian.
And I am Nia.
And as you can see, we have a guest here today.
Very
Why don't
special
you introduce
guest.
yourself?
Yes, ladies. Thank you guys for having me on your show. I'm very excited, but I'm Brittany Noel. I am a therapist, licensed therapist here in Houston, Texas. I have a history of working with PTSD, grief, a lot of trauma-centered therapy. So I'm happy that you guys invited me on to talk about all things mental health.
Yes, this is a very important episode. Lots of things developing with mental health, especially like COVID, pandemic. It just really blew up, and I'm actually glad it did.
Yes.
It made a lot of changes. So before we get started, though, can you define mental health for us? Like, what does that even mean?
So mental health is basically the well-being of your internal mind. Right. And so when we talk about mental health, you can equate it to physical health in the realms of, you could look really fit, have a whole 6-pack and then have a heart attack. Right. Whereas the body looks great, but if the internal functionings are not operating the way that they should, the body breaks down.
Right.
So when it comes to mental health is essentially how well are you taking care of that internal space that you have, the mental, emotional, spiritual well-being that you have. That is all intangible. We can't touch these things, but they are very real.
Yes.
So when we talk about mental health, it's basically gauging how are you functioning internally.
Yeah. I think my introduction with even understanding mental health came from some relationships that I was hosting when I was younger. I got out of this really crazy relationship.
Talk about it.
And even then I was like, okay, maybe I don't need help. And then it happened again. And I was like, I need help. And I was like, okay, God, like you got to help me because praying, yes, that's amazing. That's fine. Like Holy Spirit, you help me. You are very present help,
Come on.
Like you are my comforter. Like it's working.
Yeah.
But I need somebody who can talk back to me in real time. Though you can, Lord. I just need this person sitting next to me and be like, sis, look.
Yeah.
You're not
On
crazy,
some real
girl.
stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Same, actually. I started therapy about 6 months after my last breakup. Okay. And that was like 1.5 years ago. And it was the same thing. I was like, okay, I'm praying, like I'm getting pastoral advice, like I'm doing all the things, but I need something else.
Yeah.
There's still something going on inside of me and I need more. So I actually took the time to look up somebody, have the conversations, because it's not as simple as just, the first person I talk to may be the one I need,
Right.
No.
So you got to do your research, see, who fits with you.
Yes. Right.
So it is a lot of back work that I think people don't realize when it comes to prioritizing your mental health.
Yeah, I think what makes mental health hard for most individuals is the fact that we're just now hitting a curve where mental health has been normalized.
Right.
And now in social media, mental health is the wave. So it's great to say, I have a therapist, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
and mama got a therapist, right? But it's very true that you do have to make sure that your therapist is a good fit for you.
Right.
Every therapist is not a one size fit all. You need to know what credentials they have. Are they even specialized to work in the area that you need help in? Do they even have a desire to work? There's certain populations that I don't touch because I don't have a desire to work with that population.
That's good.
So you have to shop for a therapist,
right?
The same way you would shop for a car. You need to make sure that it's someone that you feel comfortable being transparent with. Someone that you don't feel like you're going to be judged if you go in and have that conversation. Yes. And then some degree of relatability. Can this person relate to my experience? Right. So there's many people who come to me who like the fact that I'm a Black woman, who like the fact that I'm young, who like the fact that I'm Christian. And so because those are my life experiences, when they're telling me about things that they're going through, it's not foreign or hard for me to understand.
Right. And that's what I actually looked for when I was looking for my therapist. It was important for me for her to be Black, her to be a woman. Yeah. Now the age really didn't bother me. And then I was also my little safe self. I was like, I want her to be Holy Ghost filled. But now, mind you, that was super, super important to me. Yeah. And by God's grace, I did find that I do have an amazing therapist. Shout out to you, Dr. Ivy. But it was really, really important for me to shop around and to see who would actually fit. So I looked up, I cannot remember what website it is, but I looked up Black women, and if I was looking at everybody's pictures. I was like, how do I feel? Come on, help me, Lord, help me, Lord. And then I ended up finding her. But it was really important to find somebody that I knew could understand what I was talking about and what I was going through in real time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So do you think, I mean, both of our experiences came after like a trauma. Mm-hmm. So do you think everybody should engage in therapy, or is it something in particular that you look for when you're looking for a therapist?
So first of all, most people do go to therapy after something traumatic has happened.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm an advocate for going when nothing is happening. Mm-hmm. Right. Because it's one thing to come into therapy because life is breaking down. Mm-hmm. But then at that point, we're doing damage control and recovery. Mm-hmm. But when you come in when life is going well, that's when we can actually work on improving your well-being to getting you into a thriving state. Mm-hmm. We have more flexibility as far as how far we can take you, mm-hmm. versus when you come in the middle of a trauma, we have to do recovery before we can even get to that standpoint. Yeah. And a lot of people say, I'm fine, ain't nothing wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And there's like your car, right? There's nothing wrong with taking your car in to get a tune up, to get an oil change. Some maintenance, right? Mm-hmm. To make sure that I'm not packing any baggage, or, that last situation really didn't affect me the way that it did. Yeah. Or just to have somewhere to vent and get things off your chest. It makes a huge difference versus waiting until something happens.
Yeah, that's good. I also wanted to talk about like the intersection of spirituality and mental health, mm-hmm. because like we've stated, we're all like women of faith. Right. And I think that mental health is not as accepted in like Christian culture. So how do you think mental health plays a part in your spirituality?
It plays a huge part. Mm-hmm. And I think that Christians embracing mental health has a large part to do with who they are getting what church you go to. Yeah. If your church supports mental health, they have counselors, they have people there who are certified and licensed to do that, then typically the response is going to be more open versus the people who are coming from maybe a church who has, people who are not as open-minded, where it's, you need to pray about everything. And if you're not improving, then you weren't praying hard enough. Right. So maybe, are you backsliding because maybe it's something you're doing, missing the fact that there are real psychological principles at work that God would have to work less if we understood ourselves better. So if I can understand how I'm getting in my own way, then I wouldn't have to rely on God as if I'm a toddler in our relationship. Come on. Right. So as a therapist, I'm all for teaching you skills. There are coping skills to teach you how to deal with life when things get difficult, how to deal with life when things are hard, how to understand how your family's cycles of generational trauma and the way that you were raised affects your outlook on the world. Yeah. If you understand yourself better, and what I have even learned is that when you understand yourself better, you understand and have a deeper understanding of your relationship with God.
That's really good.
Because if I'm relying on the church to tell me, what my stress means and what this is and everything is the devil, right? Then I'm robbed of getting to know the inner workings of who I am. And I just don't believe that God made us as contradictory as we are, as flawed as we are, as imperfect as we are, while still being as beautiful as we are, as talented as we are, as perfect as we are, for us to sit in a place to say, okay, if this is wrong with me, then it just is what it is. And get to know yourself better and you will understand why God created you the way he did. Yeah, totally. And so there's a lot of introspective work that can happen in therapy so that you understand why God made you the way he did.
Yeah. I think unfortunately people of faith sometimes can use their faith as a scapegoat. Right. Like there are things going on in your life that you need to address outside of, let me just pray about it.
I'm gonna do it. Let me just real quick.
Yes, because that's the go-to, right? Yeah. And so I don't think our faith is a scapegoat. It's actually like a pathway to understand, like you said, ourselves better. And I love that because I have come to a better place of self-awareness through therapy, just talking it out, like everyday life. Yeah. Now that I've moved past like the recovery, like you were talking about, the trauma, now we're actually just talking about life. Exactly. How my mind works, how I go through different situations, why I make the decisions I make, because it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. And I think that having a therapist who is spiritual, my clients get it. They have it tough. Because I can always bring a Bible story out of somewhere. Yeah, it's like, so you remember when David? Because it's like you said, they do want to use spirituality as a scapegoat. And I'm like, okay, well, how did you deal with that? Well, I just prayed. Okay, and then what? What did you do after the prayer? What did you do to meet God where you want him to be? Come on. Or are you just waiting, right? Yeah. And so it holds us accountable for being responsible, right? And I think that a lot of cycles in the church and our families, they're there because there's a lack of responsibility on our own mental health, our own well-being, even down to the way we communicate, right? Holding people accountable. And I think that even in the church that it's hard because we weren't taught that we can hold others accountable without being disrespectful.
Right. Oh my gosh. Right.
So as a therapist, when I'm teaching you how to put boundaries in place to say, hey, it's inappropriate for you to talk to me like that. Yeah. Hey, I don't think it's right for you to do this. You know, I've had countless clients come in and we're having to do recovery from church hurt. Because what do you do when the pastor you look up to is telling you that you're still single because you're not living a saved life?
My Lord.
Because it happens, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And to set boundaries with this church leader now makes me feel as if I have failed in my spirituality.
Or even your upbringing, it should, like, how can you question leadership?
Exactly.
Like, but I'm not questioning leadership. I'm just expressing like, hey, this doesn't work for me. I actually remember being in a situation where I was talking to my leader and I know that he could tell I shut down because he was raising his voice at me. Men raising their voice at me? No. My daddy did not grow up doing that, and you surely will not.
Absolutely.
Like, he put in some work with me. I just met you last week. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so when it came to him raising his voice at me, I was like, ooh. And when I like let him know or even set that boundary, there was definitely a shift in the relationship because it's like, oh wait, she's saying something. Or I noticed how he was talking to somebody else, and I was even in the middle or in the midst of that conversation, I was like, hey, I don't feel that way about you, about what he just said. So I'm not in this. And the look on almost everybody's faces, or like the tone of the room kind of changed. Like, wait, did she just, this man is talking to him crazy and y'all hear him. I wouldn't want you to be okay, especially in a crowd full of people. This is one thing, it's just me and you. You know, you might get a little leeway, but you did this in front of people. Yeah. I'm going to still be nice. I'm going to still be sweet. But setting that boundary is super important. And we don't always get that validation from others, like when it comes to that. So knowing that your therapist understands something like that is super important.
Yeah, you definitely need the tools. I've been working on boundaries a lot. Like that's been a big thing for me, just in life and therapy and everything. Because we don't grow up knowing that you can do that, especially like as African Americans. It's definitely like you a child, stay in a child's place. And then so we kind of, I know I personally like would shrink in every situation, even in relationships, friendships. I shrink, put myself back and put somebody else forward. So it's like little stuff like that that'll come through just having a conversation. She'll like pull different things out and it's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. And so sometimes it's just somebody telling you a different way to think about it. Right. Have you thought about it this way? Well, what if this was the case? You know, and we just go with our thoughts. Right. We run with it. We create our own story. Yes. And then that's it.
Yeah. And I think that that's important because I can't count the number of times that you can have a thought in your head and then saying it out loud and you're like, that don't even make sense.
Right. Right.
It now that I've said it.
But when it's not sounding
if it's just in my mind, surely it's true. But saying it out loud, you realize, oh, you know what? That sounds jacked up. Okay, I'm gonna find a new perspective. Yeah. So yeah.
And you know what I want to say? I really want to let people know that just because you're going to therapy doesn't mean that it's absent your faith. So it is super important to find somebody who believes in the same things that you believe in, or at least has that same background. Because when I go to therapy or when I have my sessions, it's not absent the word of God. It's not absent Holy Spirit. It's a help. Like, I don't believe that the Lord put us on this earth to just cope with only using him all the time. And I understand, please go to him. I never want to negate that. But I believe that in the same way he gave us doctors, because can we go to him for healings? Absolutely. But he's still giving us practical medicine to use. And that goes all the way to your mental health. Absolutely. It doesn't just stop at like some medications or your own body. No, it goes in your mind too, because he's constantly telling us in the word to renew our minds, refresh ourselves, be able to approve what's good and what's not good. How can we do that if our mental state is in order? Your word tells us not to be double-minded. Okay, in order for me to not be double-minded, shouldn't I have somebody to help me get my mind together? Yeah. Like all the time we talk about him being a mind regulator and all that. Yes, he is, because it's been many a time where he regulated this thing right here. But also I could call my therapist in that moment where I'm like, okay, you know what, Lord, I might not say the right thing to you, but I know I can at least talk to my therapist and let her know what's going on.
Yeah.
And when I say, whenever you're going through different things mentally, sometimes you want to express yourself, or at least for me, I may have wanted to express myself a little bit more vividly.
Yes.
And my therapist, though I would honor her, may understand my vivid words, you know, whereas God would understand my vivid words, but because there is a true reverence and a true fear in that regard, I didn't want to maybe be so colorful with him. But with my therapist, it's like, okay, maybe she may understand. She gets where I'm coming from. And I'm not saying this to you, but I just need to get it out.
Yeah.
So it really means a lot to me to be able to incorporate my faith, but truly with what you went to school for. Like, I'm not coming to you just because I want to hear Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost. I got the Bible for that.
Yeah.
I got my own relationship with the Lord for that. What they teach you in that book? Like, what coping mechanisms? Let's figure out what my trauma style even is. Like, and so that I can know that. And like you said, I can partner with Holy Spirit and with God in my life and not just have to live with that alone.
Yeah, true. Another aspect of mental health that I think is really important is this social media thing. I mean, we're all active on social media, but creating this platform just opened the floodgates.
Yes, it is.
So it's like, gosh, social media has such an effect, and it's such a platform for people who are not okay in their mental health to express themselves and impact you
freely.
So how do you maintain mental health while also being active on social media, having a platform, and just dealing with all of that?
Yeah, I think the first is you have to be clear about what your presence on social media is. What am I even here for in the first place, right? Where I'm only on social media solely for business. I'm not here for friends. I'm not here for, I don't want to hear your opinion. This is just for my tribe to find me. Once they find me, they book me, and they're now, that's it, right? So when people comment on my stuff, there is a barrier of separation there.
That's good.
Right? Whereas I'm not relying on this person to approve of my content or validate my content, because if you don't agree, then you're not my tribe. Right. So because I'm clear about my intention of being on this platform, I'm not getting boundaries mixed up.
That's good.
Right. So when people do put their input, when people do, comment and say, you don't know what you're talking about, or, I disagree. I've had a whole therapist tell me I wasn't a good therapist. And I'm just like,
Why would you do that?
Hey, like you said, hit dogs holler.
Yeah,
right?
they do.
So at the same time, I'm like, well, clearly you're not my tribe, right? Where I've had other therapists come on and they applaud and they co-sign. So you first need to know what am I here for, right? The people who get hurt most on social media are people who have learned to substitute social media presence for connection.
Wow.
Because there is a group of people who grew up with only Instagram, Facebook.
Yep.
I mean, my time, we started with MySpace, right? But we still had friends.
Exactly.
We still had interaction, personal interaction.
Yeah.
Where there are people now, they don't know, they never knew that. So they were taught that I go to this platform to get validation, to get people to like me, to get people to approve of me, and how many followers and how many likes is a consequence of how important I am.
That's good.
Right? So if you are going there to find connection, you're going to be disappointed. Right? And that's where hurt comes from. That's where broken identity comes from. So know your foundation. What am I here for? Know yourself. Who am I? So when someone comes on there and tells you who you're not, you're clear. You must be mistaken.
Yeah.
Right. And then you also have to set parameters and barriers with yourself. If you have become overwhelmed with what you see, if you know that I'm following certain accounts that trigger certain insecurities or trigger certain thoughts, then maybe I need to unfollow those.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because social media used inappropriately can be a big life stressor. A big life stressor.
Absolutely. I've had to do that as well. I've had to clean up my timeline.
Yes.
If anything about your page causes some kind of negative reaction, whether it's like anger or even envy.
Yes.
Right.
If I feel like, ooh, I want they like, let me unfollow.
Yes.
Because I love my life, and I'm not going to let this app create some vision in my head of what I don't have. No. So that's another boundary that we talked about. Like setting boundaries is so important. But I think too, we were talking about this video that we had that kind of blew up, and the comments that came through that weren't even about the topic of the video.
Not even.
Just direct attacks of like physical looks, and just, it was crazy. Now I'm like, block them, delete it.
And me, I'm like,
She want all the smoke.
No. I'm going to say something back. Now, mind you, I kept it saved. I kept it cool. I kept it holy. But no, I have time. I have just as much time as you do. I do. And matter of fact, I'm going to create some time.
Right.
Just because it's like, you need to know nobody checked you. Nobody has ever said something to you. So today, I'm going to let you know, no, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Now, could I let certain things slide? I can. Do I let certain things slide? Not really. But my whole point is people continue because sometimes people don't actually stop them. Nobody ever says anything. So now when I'm out and about and the man makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. Or if somebody says something to me online that I don't like, if I feel like I should engage that day and I'm in the right state of mind to engage that, oh yeah, I got just as much time as you had.
Right.
Right.
And
then you know what was getting me on those videos? Don't delete your comment when I say something back.
Right.
Because when I trolled back, because I did troll back. I did. When I troll back, no, stand 10 toes deep. Because I know I'm going to stand on it when I say it. Now, mind you, I still wasn't ugly in it. I acknowledged what they said. And then I put my own little spin on it. But thank you for tuning into The Real. Thank you for, have you watched the whole episode? Like, I'm not going to be evil back. I have time, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be negative to you because it's not in my heart to do that. I'm not that type of person. I don't want to see people down. If I was to talk about you, I feel bad, low key. I still mean what I said,
right?
But I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for me and for others to just know that you got to know if it's okay for you to engage or if it's not okay for you to engage. If it was one of those days where I'm like, I don't have it in me. If they do say something, I'm gonna cry. Then I didn't do it.
Right.
But that day I was just fine
with it.
I was with
all the smoke.
But y'all leave my girl alone, baby. It's me.
So now we know who's responding.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And it's important to know, like, we know our roles.
Right.
And then we're learning each other's personality. So I'm like non-confrontational. So block, delete. She's like, no, let's handle it. Yeah. So we let each other play our roles. And then that helps our mental health. Because I'm not trying to be something I'm not or do something that I don't agree with. Right. And she's doing what she do.
Right.
So it's important to, like you said, know yourself because then it plays out into everything else in your life as well.
Yeah, I take the stance of Lisa Nichols has a quote where she says, I have nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to protect.
That's good.
So that means when I go out into the world, however I show up, I meant to show up that way.
So
if I posted a video that you didn't agree with, if I was wearing something that you didn't like, if I said something that offended you, I meant to say it that way. Yeah. So that means that I don't have to respond to you because I said what I said.
Said what I said.
Right? It doesn't need additional justification. It doesn't need more clarity. You have a right to make up in your mind how you want to perceive me.
True.
Right.
And that goes into mental health because so many people are trying to control how other people perceive them.
Yeah, I've been there.
And you have to release control of trying to make people understand you, make them value you, make them see your light or your worth, make them understand what you meant. People are going to decide what they want to decide no matter. I don't care if you've been over backwards trying to help them understand, right? So I don't respond because I make up your whatever perception you want to make up. I empower you to come up with your own perceptions because I'm cool with me.
Yeah, I love that. You got to be solid in who you are.
I'm gonna start empowering people too.
Listen, I meant it. I love that. I'm about to start using it. You say what? Okay, I meant that.
Yeah,
I meant it. I meant everything.
Yeah.
Right. And it reaches a point where you stop apologizing for who you are.
Right.
And I think going back to what you said about the church, that was something that I had to reconcile within myself. Being at a church who I was still learning who I was as a speaker, not knowing that just the tidbits I was putting out in the world intimidated other people inside the church. Now I'm not knowing this because when you are new in your gifting, you don't see it as anything great or grand.
Right.
But other people do.
In fact, you kind of like low key scared, but you're just trying to stand up in the courage of God.
Correct. And then realizing that everybody may not support you in that, right? And so you reach a point where you have to say, you know what, I'm just going to be me.
Yep.
Whether you like it, I don't care what critiques you have. This is what I got to give. And it may be your cup of tea and it may not.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. Got to be okay with it.
So if you do notice yourself taking in social media negatively, but for whatever reason, you can't find yourself to get off, you can't find yourself to log out or what have you, do you have any tips or anything for that? Like what they can do? Like how can I soul search in that moment?
Well, first you want to remove the stimulus, right? So the stimulus would be the app. I would tell you to take a social media hiatus, right? Take a break, delete the app. But anytime you are triggered, understand that there's not many things outside of you that actually trigger you. Mm-hmm. Most of your triggers are internal that we've attached to an external source. Mm-hmm. So if Instagram is triggering me, it's not Instagram. It's something that I believe about myself that Instagram keeps bringing up. Right. So the internal work that has to take place is, what is it about myself that is triggered when I see this thing? What is it about myself that feels inadequate? What is it about myself? Why did that video make me think that thought?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's getting down to the deeper inner workings of yourself, because it's not Instagram that's the problem. Mm-hmm. But it's the perception and the meaning that I attach to what I saw on Instagram. Right. Mm-hmm. And that answer only comes from you.
Right. True. I think that social media has a tendency to like cloud our thoughts. Mm-hmm. I regularly delete the apps off my phone because I find myself going there just like muscle memory.
Yep.
I'm not even on my phone to get on Instagram. I'm doing something else, but I'm clicking on Instagram.
Correct. Yeah.
So you have to regularly like take inventory of your habits and things like that, because that's also feeding your mental health. And I think what's important too about therapy is, I think that some people think you go in there and the therapist does the work.
Oh yeah.
The therapist is giving you the tools that you need, and you still got to do the work, you know? And Correct. So it's not just like this pretty, beautiful journey. You know, there's a lot of internal work that I've had to do, like some ugly moments, some like, I got to cry this out. I got to talk to myself about this. So it's not necessarily like a pretty journey, but it's the best one you could ever embark on.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that that's a really big misconception, where people tell me all the time, they're like, man, I thought I was going to feel better after speaking with you. I'm like, no, that's actually the opposite.
Right.
You should feel worse because we've done some work. Right. And so the truth is that when you are uncomfortable, that's a sign that you are growing.
That's good.
Right. That's a sign that you're being challenged. I tell people all the time, one of the key indicators that you'll know whether or not a therapist is good for you is, how do you feel after your sessions? Right. If I am just completely content and it's a great day and, that was a great session, thank you so much, they're not challenging you. Right. And it could be that you're in a season where you're not being challenged. Right. But did you come here for something specific, or are we just coming here to chat and, talk about what happened last week and not actually uncover deeper things? Right. Yeah. So that's one of the misconceptions. People think therapy is just easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes to see you, what are some things that you look for in the people that you help? Like when they come to you, hey, X, Y, and Z is going on with me, and you realize you're not even ready to talk to me about this. What does that look like for you?
So for me, I'm looking for a level of awareness and willingness, because I am a more challenging therapist. So because I have a background in treating trauma is a very challenging treatment, right? It's not one where you just come and passively sit down. Trauma is very much in your face. It's very uncomfortable. So I am very comfortable with challenging my clients. They always feel loved. They always feel accepted, but their feet are held to the fire, right? So when I'm working with someone, one of the key indicators when I'm asking them about their story, their life, if they're taking no responsibility as they tell me their story, you're probably not ready for me, right? Because I'm going to show you all the places where you were responsible, right? Or where you could have made a different decision. And so that person may or may not be ready for that level of insight. So for me, I'm looking for willingness. I'm looking for, have they even been insightful enough to even see a pattern for themselves, right? If you're not there, typically I'll refer them to a different therapist, because I equate therapy to very much like a ball of yarn, right? Where when you're doing deep trauma work, trying to understand yourself, your mindsets, perceptions, it's like this big ball of yarn that's just all tangled up together. And our work is to help you take that ball and just iron it out, right?
Unravel.
Exactly. And that's why it's uncomfortable and it takes time, right? And if I'm working with someone and they just want a quick fix, I'm not going to be the therapist for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I let them know there is no timeline to this. You cannot predict how fast this goes or how slow it goes. The process is the process. Yeah. And so if they are open to that and willing to do that, then we can work together.
Very good. Very good.
I think something that I appreciated with my therapist was, like, she saw my need. When we first got together, she was like, hey, I need to see you in about 3 days. And then from there on out, okay, tomorrow, we need to talk tomorrow. And then there were times when she was like, okay, we're not making an appointment next week because I see that you're getting better. And that was even hard for me because no, because now I've attached to you. Like, I need help still. And she's like, but I wouldn't be right if I continue to see you and I know that you're in a better state and we can move on to something else.
Yeah.
So when she started doing that, I was like, hold on, like, wait.
Yeah.
So I think it is really important for your therapist to know when it's time for you to slow down or move on or see somebody else if they've helped you work through certain stuff instead of just like keeping you going or making you stay in that place. I can truly appreciate that. And how does it feel for you being a therapist, seeing that who you're working with, your patient, like, oh, you're getting better. Oh, you're working through it. Like, how does that feel for you?
For me, it feels great. It's validating for me because I'm like, oh, look at you changing lives. It makes me feel great.
Yeah.
And I'm all for, like, I'll typically start with the frequent visits and then we taper off into bi-weekly. Eventually we get to once a month. And once we get to that once a month, they know, okay, we started having the conversation of what does thriving look like without you coming here, every week or every month. So it's definitely a conversation that your therapist would prep you for, right? They give you
she did.
signals, right? Conversation.
Yeah.
But for me, it feels great because it's literally like, the mama bird throwing the bird out the nest. Like, all right, go ahead and fly.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we want. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing for me as a therapist is to be with someone week after week and they're not getting better.
Yeah.
Right? That's the hard part. Cause then you're like, what else? What can I do? How did I miss something? Did I got to consult with someone else? Like, what do y'all think? Those are the hard cases.
Yeah, I think that being successful on this journey requires a great deal of transparency. And so it's really hard to be successful with a therapist or just on your mental health journey if you're not ready to be real. Yes. You got to be real. Yeah. Good, bad, Absolutely. Ugly, whatever. You have to be ready to lay it out on the table so it can be dealt with. You got to reveal it so it can heal.
Yeah, I tell my clients I can't fix your lies, right? So if you bring me a false truth or a half truth, I'm going to fix what you gave me.
But it's not real.
And it's not going to help you. So I tell them it's better to just tell me the truth. There's not much I haven't heard. That's the biggest thing. Like I assure them, working with PTSD combat veterans, I've worked at almost majority of the smaller hospitals in Houston on women's units. I've heard a lot.
Yeah.
There's not much you can tell me.
Yeah.
That would just make me clutch my pearls.
Yeah.
Like I've heard a lot.
Yeah.
So that gives them the power. Even they've told me all the time, like they'll tell me something. They're like, man, like you didn't even flinch. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah. We be thinking that it's just us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it really is important to be transparent. And sometimes it really is hard though. Because in order for me to admit something to you, I have to admit it to myself because it comes out of me first before I can even express myself to you. But I think it's really important for people to know it's okay to be honest with yourself. And I think as a society, we haven't shown people how to be truthful, or the truths that they'll tell you to live in are really lies and false realities.
Yeah.
Or they'll almost help you believe a lie because they think that's your truth. It's like, no, it's actually not. So get to a point in your own self where you know what, you're gonna tell yourself the truth. I tell people all the time, if you want to stop lying, the first person you have to stop lying to is yourself. And it just makes it easier to tell others the truth when you've been honest with your own self.
Yeah, and I think as simple as that sounds, the hard part is that the truth is not the truth, right? The truth is I am ashamed of my truth. Yeah. So they're not hiding because of how ugly the truth is. They're hiding because I'm ashamed of what I've done or what this makes me, right? It's the perception of what this person is going to think or perceive me as because of my truth.
Yeah.
Right. Many times the majority of the work we have to do is how someone sees themselves. If I can correct how you see yourself, then your truth no longer becomes a barrier or an obstacle. It's something that I can celebrate and see how resilient I am or how, I've overcome it. But as long as I am ashamed for who I am, I'm never showing the world.
Yeah.
So you have to address the shame so that the truth can come out.
That's really good.
Address your shame, guys, so that the truth can come out. And what does the truth do? It sets you free.
Doesn't it?
Okay.
That was, wow. What a powerful episode.
Yeah.
Such a powerful episode. I just wanted to end off for the person that's watching this, that's like, hey, I hear what you guys are saying. I identify, I relate, and I want to start this mental health journey. Do you have any like tips or encouragement or advice to give just to get them started on their journey?
I would tell them to look in their area, wherever they're located, to see a therapist, right? Start shopping for therapists. You can go to, if you want a Black therapist, there's a website called Melanin and Mental Health. Okay. Where it's all Black and brown therapists. Okay. So if you're looking specifically for a minority therapist, Melanin and Mental Health would be a great place for you to go. But just start shopping. Just set up one appointment. You know, you're not going to tell your whole life story in that first appointment.
Right.
But simply just say, hey, I'm new to this. I just want to try it out. I want to see, you know, what could the benefits of this look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's the best way to go. I think listening to mental health podcasts. The biggest thing is, please don't diagnose yourself based off of Instagram. If I see one more person talking about I got ADHD from TikTok, what? No, that's not how this works.
Yeah,
like neurodivergent. This TikTok said so.
Right.
Like,
I watched a TikTok video and I realized I'm depressed. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
a bad day.
Just had a bad moment. Right. So the biggest thing is to stop going to uncredentialed sources to help you understand yourself. You actually need to go in and talk to someone, get a true understanding of what's going on with you. And then monitor your intake of sources that do not promote you working on your mental health, right? So whatever those messages are that says I shouldn't be, you know, therapy makes you weak or you're, you know, those, we have to mute those sources because that's feeding a false reality that I don't want to live in. Mm-hmm. So that would be the first step. I would say just make an appointment.
Yeah. Got to start with one step.
And again, if they want to find you because they're like, you know what, she's interesting. You know, she looks like me. You know, I feel like she'll identify. Can you give them a way to talk to you specifically?
Sure. All things BrittanyNoel.com. Mm-hmm. My calendar, you can get to my calendar from my website to schedule an individual session. You can check out some of my live sessions. I'm always on Instagram every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central. So if you just wanted to ask me a question, you could do it there. But everything is on BrittanyNoel.com.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I love this conversation. This is so good. I'm glad we were able to have it and be transparent and honest and real. Yeah. And I feel like the people will definitely be positively impacted by this episode.
Right.
Of course. So this was an awesome episode, and we look forward to coming back with another episode of your favorite Aunties podcast.
Bye.